Welcome to this week's episode of Courageous Leaders Changing the World podcast. Really excited to be able to have this week's guest, Luv Doktar, joining us today. Thanks for joining us, Linda.
Thank you so much for having me. Very excited.
The core theme of the podcast is courageous leadership. What's been a time in your life where you've had to summon all of the courage that you've had in your life to be able to bring that to something that was playing out in your life?
Oh, big question. There's a lot of things that are standing out, but one specific thing is like the courage to just be true to myself, be true to where life is guiding me in terms of my purpose, my vision, my mission, and actually just staying on path, because there's so many distractions in life, and I've certainly been one to go, oh, shiny object syndrome. I'm going to look at that, and I'm going to look at that. So, look, I don't regret any of those pivots and shiny object syndromes that I paid attention to, because that really brought me back to finding the courage to trust myself and trust where I'm meant to be. So that was really the starting point. It's a bit of a summary.
Yeah, love it. I was listening to a podcast today with Alex Hormozy, and he was talking about that. It's like if you want to be successful, it's just do one thing for your entire life. And I'm just like, okay, that's not going to be how I'm going to do my life, but thank you.
I know, I'm the same. Not a chance. That's not appealing to me.
Yeah. What would you say to people that kind of have that though? It's like, it's that dance with, shiny object syndrome, but also then following the aliveness and where they're being led.
I think it actually comes down to how we're built, like in terms of our energetics, our frequency. And I mean, people talk about human design. They talk about all these different, we can put people into boxes, right? I don't like to put myself into any boxes, but I think the most important thing is to understand how are you made up? Like, how do you operate? How do you function? How are you motivated? How are you driven? What's going to move the needle forward? Because if I was to put myself into that, do one thing, it'd be like prison for me. So I need variety in my life, and I know that about myself, that I have a high need for variety, and I'm extremely creative. So those are two things that I need to keep honoring in order to feel that I'm actually met and fulfilled in my journey. Otherwise, if I'm not expanded, I'm in contraction and I'm not going to move anyway. So yeah, it really is to understand like what is your own makeup and how can you build a life and business around that? Because there's so much noise, right? So many even business coaches and people telling you need to do things this way. This is the only way to success. And I don't agree with that. I've tried, I've dabbled, I've tried on this hat, that hat, and that hat. And I've always taken something out of it. So it's never been a waste of time. But the lessons haven't always come from, okay, I'm going to take this thing and it works. Sometimes the lesson has been the opposite. I've tried something and I'm like, okay, I'm being told to do it this way, but it doesn't fit. And it's given me the opposite lesson of stay true to yourself. You know that you're on path when you're staying in true alignment to what you know and what you feel on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do we dance with that of recognizing when it almost becomes like a disassociation mechanism or a sabotage mechanism or a trauma response?
How do we know? I think it's just being in tune with yourself, knowing your own nervous system responses, knowing your sabotaging mechanisms, and knowing when you're more likely to do that. So it's constant game of self-awareness, but also like giving yourself permission to be human, because like, so what if we do sabotage for a little bit? Is that the end of the world? We all do it, right? It's just a dance of a push and pull dance and allowing yourself to be human. I think the bigger thing is just tapping out of the bigger patterns of, okay, I'm going to destroy everything and I'm going to sabotage for 2 months and I'm going to be in my cave and not come out, those kinds of things. So It's more like going from that big heart rate of ups and downs into just more of a, okay, I'm cruising, I'm surfing, and it's not stagnant. I'm not looking for perfection, but I'm feeling like there's this aliveness. There's a gentle push and pull dynamic in life, and that's the breath, right? It's the inhale and the exhale.
How important is our nervous system for that then?
Huge. I mean, I'm still all the work. I still notice myself when my nervous system gets shot, and I know when I shut down and disassociate. And I turn to tools. We have tools until the cows come home. And it's not just about applying one tool. It's like, okay, what am I going through right now? What is the tool that's going to support me to come back into alignment, back into recalibrating my nervous system? And sometimes it might be I'm just going to shut off for an entire day and attend to my nervous system, attend to myself, and let myself watch Netflix or whatever, rocks your boat, and then go, okay, cool, I'm good again.
Mm. What about with like a lot of people who struggle to be able to do that? They're just like, okay, cool, it's not working, I need to work more.
The work harder pattern, just do more. I think there's a lesson there until we actually realize, and I had to realize that too. It's not always about doing more. It's actually finding the balance between a feminine and masculine energy within ourselves, and that's the life force of business too. Like we can't just constantly be in masculine hustle, even though men are more prone to do that. Even a lot of women are quite prone to do that, especially go-getters and ambitious women, and I can certainly resonate with that too. Like I had to learn through burnout to nourish myself, to surrender to certain aspects of my business and build masculine structures and have those in place in a healthy way. So it's not coming from a wound of do more to achieve more because then I'm good enough. Like I think the biggest shifts happened when I let go of those kinds of patterns and internal programmings where it was chasing validation, chasing to be good enough, chasing to be seen. It's like finally if I achieve more and be the star, then I'm good enough, then I made it, then people are going to love me. And that feeling never came by chasing more, by doing more. So yeah.
It's hilarious because we know each other for a long period of time. Yeah. One of the brands that I built in the fitness industry was called Chase and Gains. So it's like the unending chasing of like gains. Built like this huge Facebook page. There was like 35,000 people on it, and like it was all about chasing gains. You've just got to chase them. And it was like what I recognized in hindsight is that unending not enoughness that you're externalizing all of the things because it's like the next workout is the thing. It's like always the next thing, the next kilo of muscle that you build is the thing. And it's all of these externalizations that create us, perpetually feeling unworthy.
Yeah.
One of the things that you spoke to just before was about like masculine and feminine dynamics. How important is it to start to dive deeper into that both in business and relationships?
I think, the same aspect applies for both. If I had known the importance of that when I started business, when I started building my own business, and when I entered into relationships, things would have been very different. But we go on this journey, right? So we all learn somehow. And I think it's one of the most important things because being human, there's light and dark in everything. There's up and down in everything. There's feminine and masculine energy in every single thing. And the quicker that we realize that, the quicker I believe we can bring ourselves back into that gentle kind of heart rate and heartbeat and equilibrium that just flows. And there's seasons and cycles in life, and we got to look at, well, what's the seasons, cycles for today? What is it this week? What is it this month? What is it this year? There's so many different aspects to life and business and to relationships. How can we set the foundation so that things can flow better? So I think bringing feminine and masculine energy is literally one of the pillars that needs to be in place, that should be in place so that we can function better, because nothing's going to be stagnant. Do we have the awareness to recognize, hey, when am I flowing too much in, like I can't be bothered doing anything, or I'm in feminine chaos? And where am I too much in masculine hustle and do and push when it comes to business or relationships? I mean, this comes up in my work all the time. Women are caught up in just the masculine structure and finding it difficult to surrender to leadership. And it can be the same for a woman in business, the control element of, no, I want to do things this way, instead of, can I build the structure and then surrender to being led by that structure and by mentorship potentially.
How would you support someone with stepping into letting go of control and
In a business or relationship or in general?
either?
It's a big question. I think it's first sitting with yourself and learning to understand that where in your life are you trying to control, and how is that actually serving you? What are you trying to achieve? What are people trying to achieve? And these were the questions that I asked myself, because I definitely had the control freak showing up in relationships and showing up in business. Absolutely. And I kind of just asked myself more powerful questions. And it's like, how is this pattern serving me? Like, what am I actually getting out of this? What am I trying to gain from being in control all the time? And for me, that came down to safety. I needed to feel safe by controlling. This is what I had in my belief system. By controlling means that I'm safe. So I'm not trusting. I'm not trusting the masculine. I'm not trusting external things. I'm not trusting myself first and foremost. So yeah, it really is to identify, like, how is that really serving me? And how is it not serving me? The both parties, like the polarity and contrast of that. Because you can't just ask about the one side of the coin. It's like, okay, how is this serving me? But how is it also not serving me? And what if I flip that? What if I brought more higher consciousness to that, and to allow myself to see, what if I make some changes? Can I then actually propel in life, business, relationships? Because every level of self and relationship and business is going to require a different version of us too. So constant push and pull game.
I think that's definitely like one of the biggest mistakes as well. Most people, they don't look at how it actually serves them. They instantly just go into making wrong. It's like, I have to change this, I have to fix this. And they don't actually look at that piece, which then creates this perpetual shame cycle and this downward spiral that they just get stuck in it. And that first piece of just recognizing, well, how is it actually serving me right now, opens up so much for people when they can actually start to take the time and space to be able to do that. So I'd love you to speak more to that.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic, because as we enter into, okay, I'm going to do conscious work, I'm going to go into this personal development journey, and exactly like you said, it's not shaming that part of you, not making it wrong. And I was doing this a lot, but it's really not actually solving the cycle. It's not solving the internal pattern of what's happening. So I guess it's finding different ways of meeting that need as well. We're going to have needs. So, for example, when we're sabotaging, can we bring higher consciousness to, what am I doing right now? Yes, I know consciously I'm engaging in this behavior or whatever I'm doing. That's not really serving me if I look at that logically. Like, it's not really good for me. But what is it giving me? Is it giving me comfort? Is it giving me a sense of security? Is it giving me safety? Is that giving me reassurance and a sense of home, because it's something that I've been doing for a really long time? So really bringing that conscious awareness to, how can I then find and meet those needs in a different way?
I love that. How do you get people to be able to look for ways, because normally what happens in that is people are so blinded by their emotions in it that they don't actually see any other opportunities. They only see, how it is. And that's often what they'll say. They'll say like, well, that's just the way that it is, which is really just saying that they're emotional about something. How do we get them to be able to actually step back, to be able to see it differently?
Well, I don't think we can ever see when we're heightened in emotion, when we're in that cycle, when we're in that spiral. So I think the first step is like, pull back, just let yourself feel what you're feeling, and not having to rush to the answers. It's like, how do I resolve this, or how can I shift this? It's not always about doing more in the moment. It's about stepping back. Can I give myself the space to feel? Because remembering that I'm not going to get the answers when I'm feeling all this heightened emotion. We can't hear our high consciousness when we're in heightened emotion. There's a disconnect. But when we're just allowing spaciousness to feel and to be in that process, like, that emotion's going to shift. Nervous system starts to recalibrate, And that's when that higher consciousness comes in again. Intuition comes in. And that's when you hear truth. And that's been a huge, huge lesson for me as well. Like, I don't try now and put on more on top of something else that seems to be in chaos. So if I'm caught in overwhelm or overthinking, I don't try and go problem solving from that space. It's like, okay, I'm going to pull back. I'm going to step back, which was a process to allow myself to do that too. But it's been really beautiful because that process happens really quickly for me now. Like, I identify things so much faster and I don't stay in these cycles. I don't stay in these moments of overwhelm for that long, or chaos, or if I feel like my world is falling apart, even though logically it's never falling apart. But I can feel that way. And I know that the answer is not to seek more information and to do more in those states. I've learned to identify that, oh, that thing's happening. I'm feeling that thing, whatever that thing might be. And I just pull back and give myself the spaciousness. And the quicker I do that part, the quicker everything just transmutes and dissolves. And I'm back on track. I'm back in alignment. I didn't have to do anything to be back in alignment. I had to actually just let go. I had to surrender. I had to stop.
What if we notice a pattern that we really struggle to actually stop? You know, we get caught up in the busyness of things, of, you know, actioning. You know, there's like, there's kind of two groups in personal development. There's the over actioners and then there's the over feelers. It's like there's the group of people that are integrated, but then there's all the woo-woo people over here that are just like, oh, you know, I've become spiritual. I'm going to go live in a van and, you know, everything's going to come to me. And then there's people over here that are like, all right, well, I just need to work more, longer hours, more. How do we create a deeper sense of integration of those things?
I don't think there's one right answer. I think we all go onto our own individual journey. Like, we'll all come from somewhere with our own kind of experiences, levels of consciousness, our own lessons and pain points in life. And I think that takes us on a journey. So some people then sway into the doing. That's the way. Those are the answers. So I'm going to find the answers that way. And then the other kind of swings the other way of it's just being and all the answers are going to come. I think it's always such a personalized journey, and having to go to that extent to find the harmony, to find the balance. And that's what I had to do. I was very much in my high ambition, having to do more, having to achieve more, and really operating from that masculine energy, not only in business but in relationships. And when I then healed that pattern, which was a long journey itself, but I found deeper consciousness of, okay, how can I explore my feminine? How can I explore my feminine in business? How can I explore my feminine within myself and in my relationships? And because I had operated so much so far in the masculine aspects, I swayed completely the opposite way. And I had to then understand, where do I need to be? How does that fit with me and how does that feel? But without actually going over onto the other side of the opposite, the polar opposite of where I was operating from, I wouldn't know what balance means to me. I wouldn't know how important it is to have feminine and masculine aspects integrated into my life, into my relationships, into my business. Because even in that space, there's a lot of wrong making. Like, being in the masculine is wrong. You can't do that. And I see this in relationships all the time. Being in, women are put down for being in their masculine a lot. And quite often it's not about the masculine structures. It's that our nervous system is dysregulated from wounding. And that shows up in elements of masculinity. And then there's also downputting of you're too much in your feminine, too much flowing. And I think it's important to remember and honor where we're at in our own journey and not make something wrong. Like, we're going to find our way, one way or another, no matter how long it takes. And the beautiful thing is just staying true to that. You're going to be placed exactly where you need to be with the next person, next conversation, next mentor. You might hear a podcast episode that just clicks those pieces in a little bit more. I don't think there's a fast answer. I don't think there's a quick fix, right? Wish there was, but why did I have to learn so many lessons to come to this place? And also, I'm never done. Like I don't search for what I used to search for anymore. I'm actually really enjoying the journey, and I think that's where we get lost. We forget that it's about the now. It's about the journey. It's not about the destination of hustling and doing more to get somewhere. It's like, okay, I got somewhere. Where am I? But now I need to search for more. It's actually about the journey and still enjoying, smelling the roses, being freaking human. And I love being human more than ever now because I've let go of my perfection patterns. And it feels a lot nicer to navigate business and relationships and podcasts. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Reminds me of there's this quote where the guy says, in my 20s it was all about, the destination, and in my 30s it was all about the journey, and then in my 40s it was all about the company.
The company, yes.
Yeah, who you're doing it with trumps everything else. It's like you realize the more that you do something that, you can do it. And, it's like, who do you want to actually come with you? Who do you want to actually go along that pathway to be able to create that change in the world? Who do you want to partner with? Who do you want to hang around and have the deep conversations with? Because that's gonna amplify the level of fulfillment more than even just like being present on the journey. Because it's like, well, who am I present with? Who do I actually share this with? Who do I connect with on that journey to be able to recognize that biggest thing of like, holy fuck, I'm not alone in this, which is, the biggest thing that we kind of face off with is like, we feel all of the time that, I'm alone in this. I'm alone in burning down my business. I'm alone in the struggles of business, of like doing a launch and it absolutely failing, or putting all this money into a marketing agency and getting nothing from it. We feel like we're alone in all of these things. And when we can actually start to return to that deeper level of, presence to the journey, but also who we're with and who we're sharing that with, that just opens us up to a deeper sense of fulfillment. So one of the common themes that I'm kind of picking up on, there's two primary ones in this conversation. The first is like self-awareness. How does someone start to develop a deeper sense of self-awareness?
If we're pulling back all the layers, like really, even if I just take myself to the starting point of, if I had to go back there again, it's observing my thoughts, really just observing what's there, what's the constant thoughts that I'm having, and then being curious about the thoughts. And instead of approaching all that from a space of judgment, can I be curious about my thoughts? Can I be curious about my urges? If I have an urge to do something, like why do I have that urge? What am I seeking for? And also being curious about my emotions, like what am I feeling and why am I feeling this? And it's not always about asking why am I feeling this. We don't need a logical reason to feel. We're just human beings and we feel. But really looking at myself as a multi-part human, like different parts. Okay, I have my mental aspect. I have my emotional aspect, I have my energetic aspect, and then I have my needs, like what's really important to me, what do I value? So really looking at the different parts and pulling yourself apart. If you had a puzzle, like can I separate myself and look at, okay, I'm going to look at these and these and these parts, and I'm also going to look at the shadow self. I'm going to look at the behaviors that I might not be proud of. I'm going to look at the things that I judge myself for. Why am I judging these parts of me? So I think it's just shifting into more or understanding how you're made up. And there's power that comes from that. Can you look at how you're made up without judging you? And I think the biggest key is to let go of the perfection and let go of the judgment. That's shifted some of the biggest things for me. Just allowing myself to be me, to be human, and to be different from everybody else. Because for a very long time, I just wanted to belong and I just wanted to be the best. And now it's not about being the best. It's actually about serving humanity. And interesting what you said before, it's about who you're doing it with. For me right now, it's about collaborations. It's about more togetherness, more community. How can we do things together? It's not this Linda show. It's how can I open up my door and how can we serve humanity together? How can we create even more impact together?
What's your vision for humanity?
My vision for humanity comes back to relationships. I mean, I could take this into all different areas, but because of the work that I do and my passion with what I do every day and what I stand for is having better relationships, because I believe that that's the starting point of everything. When we can learn to thrive in relationships, that is going to go into our work. Like if you think about relationships are our kind of home hub under a roof. If relationships are not working, that's going to amplify in other areas of life. How you feel about yourself, whether you're avoiding, whether you're numbing, whether you're seeking something else. And I believe that happy, thriving, fulfilling relationships are going to heal the world in a huge way. So that's what I'm going to stand for. And I want to see more of that in the world. I want to see men getting along with women and women getting along with men. I want to see men and women working together in harmony instead of having these movements of women against men and men against women. I'm so tired of that. It hasn't solved anything up until this point. So it's not a solution. It really is it's a homecoming, not just a homecoming to ourselves, but a homecoming into humanness, into life as the feminine and masculine integrating back into harmony, which ties in with everything that we've spoken about today. You know, finding that feminine and masculine in life, in business, in relationships, in life in general. We just operate better when we can have these two counterparts work together instead of separately.
Mm-hmm. How do we start to deepen our relationship with those different parts? And that's like the other theme of this podcast is very much around polarity. It's like self-awareness, polarity. How do we start to deepen our relationship with whatever we're at currently with our relationship to polarity?
I think it's really important to look at the feedback, because where we're at in polarity, there's going to be a certain level of feedback that's given to us. So this can be in business. It can be how that might show up in business could be if you're too much in the masculine, it's like I'm doing, then I'm burning out. So there's no space to receive abundance. Could be, I mean, money could still come in, but there's no space to receive health, vitality, and the feel-good feelings of, hey, I actually really enjoy my life. Health could be suffering as a result of burnout. So how that could show up in relationships is a woman being too much in her masculine, and there's butting heads with a man and woman. It's like, okay, there's feedback. I'm seeing that there's feedback because masculine and masculine is going to keep butting heads. So what is that feedback showing you in whether it's in relationships or business? Can we bring higher consciousness into that feedback and see, okay, this is trying to tell me something. Why is this not working? Why are we butting heads? Why am I burning out in business? So taking a step back, it's the willingness of taking a step back and looking at that feedback and not making it wrong. It's not wrong that we're experiencing these things. It's just gentle, loving reminders of, can I pivot a little bit? Can I look at this as from a space of love instead of judgment? And can I actually know and understand that every single human is going through this stuff and we're never alone. We really aren't. And I love that you touched on that before, and I see this in my relationship work all the time. People approach me and share from a space of shame, and they think that they're the only people going through relationship challenges or navigating friction, navigating communication challenges, or navigating lack of intimacy. And I can reassure you this happens literally in every relationship. There is something that people are working on. And that's the beauty of humanness.
Yeah, I love that point you brought up before. It's like, we're going to continue the work. As soon as we, label ourselves as the master, we no longer are. It's like we want to step into that growth again and again and again and again and face off with ourselves. And that's one of the things that I love about business. It's like, how do we create business being this intersecting point for, our spiritual growth? And it's the same thing with a relationship. How do we turn our relationship into our spiritual growth pathway? How do we turn every area of our life into this growth pathway where we can actually start to, have this integrated life rather than just this separate life over here of like, this is my relationship and it's entirely separate from my business. And, it certainly brings up things when all of those things are meshed together. Like I'm in business with my partner, where we've got kids, all of those things. And, when we are in a deeper sense of connection, business gets so much easier. It gets hard and heavy and painful when we're fighting. And it's important to be able to journey those things, to be able to come out the other side of them. And at the same time, that level of willingness to be able to face off with the things in whatever area of life that they're coming up is what opens people up the most. And I think that's the thing that most people miss, because most people are too busy going, oh no, I want the growth in business right now. And it's like, well, yeah, you probably do, but your relationship is the thing that's punching you in the face right now.
Yes, that everything's interlinked. We can't have a separate, we can look at things from a separate kind of view, but everything's intertwined. Like you just shared, if you're fighting with your partner, then business feels hard. Like it just feels more challenging. And quite often, I think we seek for the answers in the wrong places.
Yes.
Yes, I certainly have. And we think that it's going to come. We're attached that it's going to come this way. I'm seeking. This has to be the answer. But we're not opening up to the full spectrum of life. Most of my lessons have come completely differently. Like the answers I've been seeking, it's like, I'm going to get it this way from this direction, masculine aspect. It came completely the opposite way because I trusted and I opened up to just receiving the initiation the way that it was meant for me, the way that I actually needed. So I'm not trying to control every aspect of my life, which I was, but no longer. And now there's this beautiful flow of I'm pulling back and listening. And I understand that life is a constant initiation. And before I had this negative kind of outlook on that fact. I call it a fact now because it is. And I'm excited. I'm excited that I get to grow. I don't always go out seeking for what's next, how can I grow again? There's seasons and cycles for that too. But I'm so just surrendered into my human experience. I'm like, well, life's going to give me my next initiation when I'm ready. God's going to give me the next big thing when I'm ready. I don't always need to go searching for it. I can also enjoy the times of peace and calm and quiet. Like I've just actually last year came out of a really, really heavy 18-month initiation. The type of initiation that held many other initiations, but that time felt like I was in a constant earthquake, constant roller coaster. And this hasn't happened for 10 years in my life. So it was like, what is going on? Okay, I'm just going to surrender to this is the time. I'm in deep transformation. I'm literally transforming into a whole new human being. And now looking back at it, being on the other side of it, I won't change a thing. I didn't know if I was coming out dead or alive from that experience with how intense it was. I had PTSD reactivated from a decade ago. Like there was a lot of things of, how am I back here? I've done all the work with all the tools and I'm back in this like beginner level, Super Mario beginner level of having to do it all over again, find new ways, surrender to new things, open up to new things. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is how we're doing life right now. This is the season of life. This is the chapter of my life. And I'm not trying to speed up that chapter. I think this was a huge thing that changed a lot for me when I started to look at life as there's seasons, there's chapters, there's, seasons and chapters, and just being with that. What season am I in right now? What's the chapter? And some chapters are long and some are short, and then there's little ones in bigger chapters too. And now I'm excited being in different chapters. I'm like, this is the vibe right now. This is the vibe. And sometimes I'm in a more of a masculine chapter in my business too. But I know that's not sustainable long term. And then I take time off. I just took 2 weeks off for the first time in God knows probably a decade, because I'm a very creative. I always come and mix creativity and holidays, and I went to Thailand and completely stepped back and just let myself be and enjoy life, which was beautiful. That itself was an initiation for me. Could I really just park everything else that I'm doing in life, even though all the other things are my driving force and fuel for my life? Could I be present with what's here? And I was, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that definitely plays out for us. You know, I was in Bali a couple of years ago in a retreat, and you know, I had this experience where I'm like, it was this very pivotal moment for me, because I was having something coming up that I'm like, I've journeyed this so many times before, I've healed this so many times before. Why are we here? This is bullshit. You know how you get sometimes. You're just like, oh my God, I've healed this so many times before. Why is this coming up again? And that was like the last time I had that experience, because what I recognized was, it's like, well, you know, people have one or two responses. It's like the work never ends, and it's like either the work never ends, or it's like the work never ends. It never gets, like, it never stops getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and you never stop getting more open and more open. And you know, it's exactly the same thing playing out, but how you relate to it is entirely different, and opens things up so much more. And I remember having this conversation about, you know, the season that we were both in. It was like a season of recently of like going back to doing one-on-one, and yes we can you know, charge all of the high ticket things and do all of those things, but that season of like foundation, of like being humble enough to be able to have that season and actually develop a deeper foundation, is what creates, you know, such growth for us. And when I see people in that willing to actually do that season, rather than having to be like all outward growth, it's like, I remember we were having this conversation. It was very inspiring for me to be able to see you in that, because I was like in the same season as well. And it creates that deeper sense of openness for people to just recognize, you know, all seasons are temporary. You know, if you're in a season of winter, that will pass. When if you try and hustle and overwork in winter, you're just going to get tired. If you plant seeds in spring, those things just grow effortlessly. When you recognize the season that you're in, you know, everything starts to open up for us. And one of the ways that I look at that as well is like, there's a season of being initiated, and there's a season of initiating other people.
Yes.
And most people want to be in the season of initiating other people. It's like, oh, I want to go out there to the world and do it for other people, when it's our season of initiation, because that's creating a deeper foundation for all of those things. Yeah. So I'd love to know what you're being initiated into right now.
Right now. Oh. Just even feeling into that question, I'm like, oh, okay. My initiation right now is about being seen on a bigger scale. And I've had a push and pull with being seen my whole life. The really interesting thing is, I was chasing being seen, but there was a pattern. There was an underlying reason why. I want to be the best. I want to be seen. I want to be heard. I want to be the loudest and the best and the biggest. And it was exhausting, because that came from a space of validation. I'm trying to get a need met or a wound basically patched up in the process. And as I've healed that wound, now I'm learning to be seen in a whole new way. How does it feel like to be seen on a bigger level when I don't have that? I'm chasing something. It's like I'm learning to walk again. So I have been in a season of hibernation and building structures and foundation and just being present with my life, deepening my experience to life and to myself. And now I know that I'm being initiated, coming out of the cave, coming out of the silence, and just being seen and heard by a lot of people. And that to me feels really uncomfortable right now. And it's such a part of me thinks that it's a funny thing to say because I've been on a lot of stages. I've spoken in front of a lot of, there's been a magnitude of being seen on a global scale as well. But why do I feel so uncomfortable now? It's because I'm different. I'm not seeking anything. It's not from self-gaining approaches. That's not what's there. It's actually like, this isn't about me at all. I'm showing up for other people. I'm showing up for humanity. I'm showing up for my mission, which is I'm just the vessel. I'm not why. Look at me because I'm amazing. It's I'm just the vessel. And look at humanity. Look at the change that we're creating. And that's initiating me a lot right now. And I feel really uncomfortable. And of course, as always, I'm leaning into the uncomfortability. And I'm taking my time with it too, because there's different parts to it. And I am having a lot of deep and meaningful conversations with myself. As you do.
Yes.
Especially as a Gemini. So I always say it's Gemini is not just two personalities, it's 222 personalities floating around. So very deep and meaningful conversations with myself, which I think are required, not just with myself, but I'm also externally verbalizing them to friends and business partners who are in the right space, in the same space, mentors. And for me right now, it's staying true to myself, not listening to external noise or what the next chapter of even business should look like. To me, it's very much staying true to myself. And where am I being called? Like, what is this season asking from me right now? And I'm following that. I'm not following external noise and guidance of, oh, you shouldn't do it this way. This is the right way. I'm asking what's being asked of me in this chapter. And I'm staying true to that.
Yeah. I love that. It's it's definitely that dance of can only recognize in hindsight when you're doing it from that kind of shadow place of like needing to be seen, or that desperation need to be seen, and the entirely different energetic frequency when it's like that inspiration is actually coming through you and it's calling you into being seen more, and it's bringing up all of your stuff, all of the things internally which are out of alignment with that, which is like being alchemized as you're starting to step into that on an even deeper level. And it's it's like the perfect kind of theme of the podcast. It's like the courage to be able to step into that, the courage to be able to, put yourself on that edge and face off with yourself time and time again. Because when it comes from that place of inspiration, it just, it pours out of you. You don't need to force it or actually change any of it. Whatever the thing that is being brought to you is the next thing, which is to be alchemized. It's the next thing to be loved. It's the next thing to be expressed. And there's like that dance of recognizing that you can only really recognize that if you're doing it from that neediness place in hindsight. When you're in it, you're like, oh my God, it's for service. I remember I used to be like, I'm here to serve the world. And I look at my first book and I'm like,
oh my gosh.
I'm just bro, are you serious? It's just like, I'm just like giving my inner child like, oh, there, little one. I see you.
This is so good. And you know what really lands for me right now as you said that, just before I completely like went onto the journey of breaking through these patterns, it was just before COVID and I went to Vegas, went on this mastermind journey and it was a 10X Grant Cardone's, the big event. And I thought, I've literally made it now. So there was a moment that happened in Vegas where it was a VIP party, Grant Cardone on stage, Elena Cardone, rapper Rick Ross, and Cardone's jet was right next to us. And I'm like, this is it. This is my moment of glory. I got pulled up on stage and I was dancing on stage with Elena and Grant and I was like, fuck yes, I made it. I made it. This is the pinnacle of success. And I'm like, wow. Anyway, coming back from that, COVID happened, went on my own internal journey to release those kind of processes. But I remember looking back at myself going, oh my God. Because I shared about it. It was like, this is it. Like I'm it. I made it, you know? But then that feeling never stuck. Like when I was chasing through even fitness competitions back in the day. It was a moment of fame for 2 minutes and then back to feeling lonely and empty. So that void never went away until I corrected the parts of myself. But I think it's so funny to reflect back on the former self. And I'm also holding compassion for that part of me. Like I'm not trying to judge her. I can have a little laugh and a little giggle. That's cool. But I'm not going into any crazy judgments of that was wrong or that was bad. I needed to be that. I needed to do that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have learned. So I think it's so important that we're not judging that because judgment carries then shame, right? But I think I can laugh at my little, former self and go, that was very cute. I was so glad I learned my lessons. And I still got more to learn. Like I'm sure that the 5 years from now version is going to look at me going, oh, she was so cute on that podcast with Cody.
Yeah, I love that. It's like I always just I often fall into that trap of like judging myself, and it's just like, oh, it's just like the child version of me. It's the child version of me that's just so blissfully ignorant that they're just doing their thing, completely oblivious that they're like playing on the edge of a cliff or something. And it's just like, when I recognize that I'm start doing something like that, it's just like, parenting the little child in me, just be like, oh, just come back over here a little bit. Don't need to scream and shout. Just come back over here a little bit. Back to your presence.
The tantrums.
The tantrums. Don't get me started on tantrums. You got a 2-year-old at home at the moment.
Oh.
So it's like, parenting is this thing that just reflects all of these things back to you so much. Like my son is very, very, very much like me. My partner's like, I don't really she doesn't get a look in terms of how he looks and kind of how he like operates and stuff. And because we've got the next child on the way, we're just meeting with the doula before this. And we're talking about, it's so interesting how it plays out. Like the womb conditions that my first child were going through were similar to the womb conditions that I would have had in terms of like what was happening financially. So it was very interesting to start to see that play out. And it was just like a deeper sense of like connection of recognizing, all of the parts of us are kind of required for different points as well. We recognize that needing to be seen part that, is very much apparent in fitness industry when we're in our tans and all of those things. It's like, there's a need to be seen in that. And it's like required as that season of that journey. And then the deepening into that, the deepening of going from needing to be seen on stage to needing to be seen to actually creating change in the world, and then needing to be seen to actually start to create a reputation beyond that, and all the different levels of, needing to be seen as that wounding that we unendingly journey, that, is that deeper sense of initiation every single time. There's like a deeper sense of seeing ourselves. And the more that we can actually start to see ourselves, the more that we can actually, allow ourselves to be seen out in the world. What's that one piece of you that, you struggle to acknowledge in yourself?
What's alive for me with that question is the power. I struggle to see the power and really own my power. I do. And I feel like this has been an ongoing initiation for me, especially since I tapped out of those wounds of seeking and validating. And it's like an edge. It's like I know logically how much power I have. And I also hear it all the time, hear it from testimonials, feedback, interactions. And I'm not about the accolades. I'm not about that. So even though I'm receiving the feedback in a really beautiful way, sometimes it's even overwhelming. Like I actually had this experience only last week where in one day, I received magnitude of positive feedback, of testimonials, of people just sharing things, like big things with me, how it impacted their life and how my work needs to be worldwide. And I'm like, little old me, really? So there's still that little girl like, really? Am I really this powerful? And there's a part of me that knows, yes, I'm a stand for my work. I know how powerful my work is and it needs to get out there on a bigger scale. And then there's also a big part of me that's like, I'm really struggling to own that piece of me. I'm struggling to own the power in that and really step into it. And I know when I do, what's going to happen? Like it's almost like, who am I going to be if I was to really step into my own power and not play small and be seen even on a bigger level for the magnitude of or the power of this? What's going to happen? I think there might be still, it's just a deepening, right? A deepening of, I get to have all that. I get to be all that. And I get to also be human around that.
Yeah, I definitely feel all of that. It's definitely one of the things that plays out for like a lot of coaches and stuff as well. It's like you recognize, especially in the context of like standing for your mission or sales, it's like you have the capacity, you have the skill to be able to, get people into your programs. And it's like, well, am I overstepping the bounds of like overpowering people to be able to then do that rather than actually creating them being a sovereign being? And it's very much that dance of, for me, when I'm deepening my relationship to power, it's like, well, where are all the areas where I've given my power away to other people, to other things? My favorite thing is to give my power away to marketing. That's probably my favorite one. It's like, when I get more leads, then it's going to be great. It's like give my power away to that thing outside of myself. And, it comes back to that piece of like, the more that you own your power, the more that you become the authority rather than just the pseudo authority of like, get the credibility points and all that jazz that we do. It's like the authority that just like people are, it's like transformed by your presence more than anything else. It's that deeper sense of authority of like actual, more than the logical understanding of your power. It's like that just knowing inside of you. So I deeply resonate with all of those things, and it's like one of the pieces of just returning back to that human part of us. That's like, it's like that dance of like stepping into it and then kind of stepping back to it. It's like you get the feedback and you're like, yeah, but kinda, because like it's the same for like our work. We have like hundreds of video testimonials that I don't even like go through, that aren't even up like on YouTube or anything. There's like already heaps there, but it's just like all of that stuff of like all of the things that comes up internally for me to reflect on how I get to show up with all of that is like an initiation for me. So it's good to see other people in it too.
Yeah, and I think true power can really be felt. Like you said, we can have these, and we all start by, I've got to have credibility and get the testimonials and people to speak highly of my work and myself. But true power, when it's really embodied and claimed within oneself, it's an energy, right? Like it's a level of embodiment that can be felt when someone walks into the room and you just feel them. And I love experiencing people that way because it gives me so much. I'm not triggered by it. I'm always curious. Wow, I want some of that. It's magnetic and I want more of that. And it's always a deepening, right? Like we spoke earlier, life is a deepening. Business is a deepening. And it's not really about getting anywhere. It's just, how can I deepen my relationship with myself? How can I deepen my relationship with life, with my intimate relationships? And this is quite common in long-term relationships, like 10, 15, 20 years. It's like, oh, we've been together for a long time. It's just the same mundane. It's like, it doesn't have to be. It's not that we're searching or trying to dig up something that's, fix something that's not broken. It's not about that at all. It's like, how can I deepen the essence of this? How can I deepen this love? How can I deepen being seen and also witnessing? How can I deepen intimacy? How can I deepen communication? How can I deepen evolution? Like that excites me, the deepening, but not from a space of seeking or fixing.
Yeah. That's like a really important distinction as well, that seeking or fixing is an entirely different energy comparative to deepening. It's like, how do we meet life on an even deeper level, moment by moment? How do we create a deeper sense of presence to what is in us, what is alive in us, and actually bring that to every relationship that we have? How do we start to see that person as if we're seeing them for the first time, rather than going into all of the stories and narratives that we've created around them and who they have to be in our life based on the story that we've created for them? It's that willingness to be able to come back internally, to be able to step outside of all of the things that we've created outside of ourselves, to be able to come back to like, this is a moment that we've never experienced before. So
something I'm playing with in that space at the moment is
I like playing.
The deepening is I like playing games with myself.
Me too.
In all different ways.
Yes.
Anyway, to serve my own deepening. So this particular game is how I interact with strangers.
Yeah.
Because I've observed, I love observing people, I love observing myself, but people are so busy. We're out there at the shops and just doing our thing. We got our to-do list and we're literally just like, hi, how you going? We're not present. And right now I'm in this little game with myself of, can I be really present with the Coles checkout chick? Can I really just look deeply into her eyes and ask about her day? Or if she asks me a question, how are you? I don't just go, yeah, good. I actually go, I think about that. I feel into my body of, oh, today I'm feeling like this. And it might be a completely random answer to what she's used to, the normal, oh, yeah, good. Because everyone says good, and that's not, it's just something we say. It's a very unconscious programming, I believe. But I'm being more aware. I'm bringing deeper presence into my interactions with strangers, because that also helps me keep myself present in the now.
Yeah, I love that. I play a different version, but similar thing. I'm like unendingly like scoring myself on how present I am with someone. It's like, oh, I'm at a 7, I'm at a 5, I'm at a 4. And the two areas that are, well, there's kind of 3 areas that are hardest. There's like, number 1 is podcasting or speaking, because you're like managing time, you're managing the conversation, you're managing all of the different things. So I find that difficult. The same as rooms, because you're managing like this person over here while this person's in a process over here. So you're managing all of the things. So it's difficult to create a heightened level of presence there. But then also like in relationship, because it's so vulnerable, it's like it's hard to be able to then do it there. But I haven't been doing it as much in just random social interactions. So I can definitely add that piece in.
You're welcome to borrow my game. I won't borrow yours.
Mine's more the masculine. It's just like, all right, score it out of 10.
And I'm like, I'm going to feel into this moment. I love it.
It's interesting just to see like, what people, when they're on their journey, is like the games that they play with themselves as well. It's like some people are just like oblivious that, they can play games in life. They just take it. One of my things is like being too serious and stuff. And the more that I can bring that level of play into my life, the more that it opens up for me.
Yes.
So it's interesting, just to see how many different people have different things that they do just to be able to, bring that deeper sense of aliveness to things, because otherwise it just gets stale, boring, repetitive, numbing.
100%. I agree with that. That's actually another little initiation and game that I'm playing with at the moment, is to bring more play and joy. Because naturally, like who I am, if I'm looking at behind the scenes, I'm actually a very playful person. I'm constantly laughing at myself, having these conversations and games, and I'm like, life is so fun being in my life most of the time.
Except we're in the dark night of the soul, then it's not so fun.
I actually really enjoy myself. And so I'm asking, how can I bring more of that? Because that's part of my natural essence, to be playful. And how can I bring more of that into my work? And it's actually now become a desire to bring more of that play into bringing men and women closer together, and healing in the relationship space. Because if we look at the mainstream traditional, oh, everything's so serious, I'm having this problem, and it's just so heavy. And I want to have a different approach in my work. And I remember some of the big initiations, how I've learned, it's actually been through play, through humor, through fun, because fun brings an essence of being really present. We're not in the shadow self or the trauma self. It's like, hey, I'm here. My nervous system is relaxed and I can actually pay attention and be present to what's going on.
Yeah, it's one of those things in like Jen Weinhall's work. She talks about the polyvagal theory application of sympathetic nervous system and dorsal vagal and ventral vagal, sorry. So it's like connection and like fight or flight. But when those two things come together, that's like the nervous system of play. That's actually when we learn the most, when we can actually be in that place of like the dance of the energy between two people, but also being connected to ourselves in that moment. That's that energy of play. And we learn more, we remember more, and we create more from that place. And that's one of the things that we've, as a society, just forgotten over time.
Totally. I love that. So then I know I'm on the right path and right track with my retreats, because the amount of tears and the amount of laughter that is brought together, like I've literally witnessed people just in laughing and crying in the same kind of moment. And it's beautiful. It's the messiness of healing, of transformation, and being human is just so beautiful to witness. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the perfect thing to start to wrap up on. What's the best way for people to be able to find you?
Either my website or socials. I'm pretty active on social media, so it's Linda Luv Doktar, LUV, and Doctor, my surname. I go by the Luv Doktar.
Love it.
And website, luvdoktar.love.
Yeah. All right. I really love this conversation. It's been very enlivening, I think is the word. So
yes, it has been. Thank you, Cody. It's been so good.